Welcome back to the Lumber Snack. That's right. We're going to continue with part 2 of our discovery of the Chaldean oracles, arranged and translated by Thomas Taylor, specifically just the post-read organized English translation ones, because it's quicker and, it gets the job done. A few things I want to clear up from the last video, because I always rewatch my videos to notice errors or to do things. I like my content. I don't know. But I added some definitions from the last video. So we have synox, which is these are all Greek terms. So the fact that I wrote these in English is dumb. But I don't know Greek good enough to do anything else. Nor do you, probably. So, but the synox is being held together, which is pretty much what I said. I know that there's a certain level of through distress or anguish that I found online as a definition of it, but like I was saying with atoms and molecules or whatever being held together in certain shapes. Correct. Hyperaxis is possession, so when we put that in, conjunction of power, people who have power come into possessions of other things. Your possessions tend to make you as a human in this world or whatever. I don't know, I'm not that materialistic. And then hinges, which I think is the plural of inks from Greek, and it just translates to magic wheel that's spinning for magic stuff, I think. I don't know, this is all Greek stuff really. But Chaldean as well. It's I believe it's Chaldean knowledge translated into the Greeks either during the time of Christ, shortly before the time of Christ, or shortly after the time of Christ, somewhere in that region. Because Greek and Aramaic was kind of the dominant language after the conquests of Alexander the Great. I think that's history. I don't know. And then the last thing I want to correct, I think in a little heated tirade in my last video, I said that a specific orange-crusted gentleman, if he really wanted to get into heaven, should donate his money to sex trafficking. I meant explicitly to donate it to end sex trafficking. I think that's what the ICE goons should be focusing on, is less immigration, more the fact that the I-5 corridor is one of the worst places in the world for sex trafficking, and we're doing nada to shut that down. We've got worse priorities, when in fact I think sex trafficking, specifically child sex trafficking, is the most abhorrent thing, and the only oh gosh, bad. But just to, I think it's important. There's a link in my description, the video about this video section, that should take you to a website for a nonprofit called the Silent Bridge Foundation. It is a foundation of one dude who will remain unnamed because he doesn't like the spotlight, because he is a saint. Good dude. But he goes to some of those areas that are really affected by child prostitution and just the wickedness of the world that I don't want to talk about, because it's really bad. So if you'd like to donate, there's a link in the bio for that. It's just real bad out there. It's really bad. The fact that we aren't focusing and really trying to make, in fact, not only that we aren't trying to stop sex trafficking in this world, but in fact we are sheltering sex traffickers. We are protecting the names of sex traffickers. We are in our government. We shut down our government to protect these perverts of God who do this kind of crap to kids, and it's disgusting. And anyone who stands with it is against me, and against God, and against the world. I don't care. If you are someone who thinks that how the handling of these files and this situation that I'm so obviously talking about is being handled well, go away. leave this world. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. It's the worst. It's the worst thing. But we're gonna go back to the Chaldean oracles on our journey into actual spirituality and foundations of religion that are forgotten about as such a Christian nationalist nation. It's so bad out there, guys. It's so bad out there. But anyhow, the intellectual order, the Fontal Fathers, in a certain respect, the world possesses intellectual inflexible sustainers, i.e. the Fontal Fathers or intellectual gods. Saturn, the summit. The father Saturn has hastily withdrawn himself, is thus perfectly separated from all connection with matter, but has not shut up his proper fire in his own intellectual power, but imparts his divinity to inferior natures. The fire which is the first beyond did not shut up his power in matter, nor in works, but in intellect. For the artificer of the fire world is an intellect of intellect. And of that intellect which conducts the Empyrean world, from him leap forth the implacable thunders and the capacious bosoms of the all-splendid strength of the Father-begotten Hecate, together with the environed flower of fire and the strong spirit which is beyond the fiery pulse. In the oracles, it is said that Saturn, who is the first fountain of the Amelicity, comprehends and rides on all the rest. The intellect of the Father riding on attenuated rulers, they become refulgent with the furrows of inflexible and implacable fire. The Father did not hurl forth fear, but infused persuasion. As divinity is not of a tyrannical nature, he draws everything to himself by persuasion and not by fear. The Father, Saturn, perfected all things and delivered them to the second intellect, Jupiter, which the nations of men call the first. Funky. So I can only respect these things in like terms of planets and how I understand them astrologically. But like there's a certain level that Satan is reminiscent of Saturn, which I cast out Satan. I know the true name. I refuse to say it. But Saturn, Satan, is said to have been the god of the Old Testament. But, you know, there's so much weirdness. It's like demiurge, stuff like that. Read the Apocryphon of John if you want to know more. I know that, like, the Gnostic texts were decided not to be canon, but I also reject the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. It's the only book I really reject. If they can reject books, I can reject books. Nerds. I'm a studier of this stuff. But anyhow, astrologically speaking, an interesting thing about Saturn is that I study what I call death charts. And so basically you take someone's birth chart, and then you take the day they died, and you see how certain planets line up. And there's a certain, like, level that Saturn lines up with, like, birth planets pretty frequently in astrology, in death charts. Like, more so, like, I'm not gonna say it happens in everything. There's always exceptions to the rule, but, like, on average, it tends to be a Saturnian thing that has those qualities, which, you know, if God puts us down here and, you know, knows the day that we're gonna die, because I think that's something explicitly written in the Quran, is something written somewhere. I've definitely read it. God can know us in the womb, you know, it's because there's a divine plan. You know, it has to be programmed somehow, and the planets make the most sense. I'm sorry. I'll argue any astrophysicist on this. Hecate, Rhea. The vivific fountain of souls is comprehended under two intellects. Immense nature is suspended about the shoulders of the goddess. I think the goddess is Earth. The center of Hecate is carried in the middle of the fathers. In the left-hand inward part of Hecate, the center of the intellectual gods, is the fountain of virtue, which wholly abides within and does not emit its virginal nature. Her hairs appear similar to rays of light ending in a sharp point. Rhea is the fountain and river of the blessed intellectual gods, for first receiving the powers of all things in her ineffable bosoms, She pours running generation into everything. And so here's something interesting, is that you have to know a little bit about Greek mythology. Hecate is the goddess of magic in Greek mythology. Hecate's mother is Rhea, who basically kind of does the same thing on a higher level, I think. And then Rhea's parents are Uranus, which is the heavens, the ultimate creator, and Gaia, I believe, which is Earth. And so Rhea and Hecate kind of follow that similar predication that Enki does. And so resting on the goddess's shoulders, on Earth's shoulders, I think it's that electromagnetic membrane, that MGE that I mentioned. That should be fully programmable, and I think I figured out the mathematics of number theory, but quite frankly, there are a few major players in the technological game right now, and the machinery game, and the data-driven game, who are billionaires, multi-billionaires, whatever. But like, their intentions are wicked. I don't trust them in the slightest. I don't want to release my specific math yet, my sick, nasty, awesome, dope, complex number bases that I came up with that have routinity and symmetry, that I think I showed one of them. I don't want that to fall into the wrong hands, because I truly believe that if they do fall into the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic for the entire world. But I discovered the math. Let that be known. Whether you agree or disagree, I don't care. Challenge me in structured debate, nerd. Jupiter, the artificer of the universe. The duad sits with this god Jupiter and glitters with intellectual sections, together with the power of governing all things and placing in order everything which is not regularly disposed. And the fountain of fountains and the boundary of all fountains, the intellect of the eternal Father governing all things by intellect, said, energized its perfected intellections into three. For the intellect of the Father said all things should be cut into three. His will assented, and immediately all things were cut. Thence the generation of multifarious matter wholly leaps forth. The demiurgus, having mingled the vital spark from two according substances, intellect and divine spirit, he added as the third to these pure and holy love, the venerable charioteer that binds all things together. The paternal self-begotten intellect, understanding his works, disseminated in all things the bond of love, heavy with fire, that all things might remain loving for an infinite time, that the connected series of things might intellectually remain in all the light of the Father, and that the elements of the world might continue running in love. This goes on, but we're going to go back to Jupiter real quick, because, again, planets. I kind of see what they're talking about, where people say Jupiter is the first in order, but this argues that Saturn is actually the first in order. I understand that, because I know the planet Uranus, with its tilted axis and tilted electromagnetic tilt, that through the course of the nothingness that is space and the gravity that exists, or the laws of gravity anyhow, would in theory create a dome across the entire thing that all these kind of like electromagnetic energies could intermingle in. That being said, if Uranus is that line that's drawn, the first planet from that line is Saturn. And so that's likely what it means, whether they weren't picking up on that because they didn't know Uranus existed, or they did. I don't think they did. But yeah. The paternal intellect, who understands intelligibles and adorns things ineffable, has disseminated symbols through the world. Oh, but Jupiter has like just so much electromagnetism. It's so big, man. It's so big. It spins so fast. It wasn't discovered that it had electromagnetism until 1973, man. You want to see all these freaking scientists who said there's no, mechanical background or back end that could justify any sort of astrology, all of which before 1781, and then everything after that's just repeating that BS, When did Leonard Euler die? Euler. When did he die? Right after Uranus was discovered, 2 years later, while he was discussing the planet Uranus, and he had a stroke. There's power in Uranus to prove me wrong. But the paternal intellect will not receive the will of the soul till she has departed from oblivion, till she has recovered her knowledge of the divine symbols and sacred lessons from which she is composed, and has spoken the word, assuming the memory of her paternal sacred impression. Through intellect, he contains intelligibles, but he introduces senses to the worlds. For he is the power of a strength every way lucid, and he glitters with intellectual sections. The artificer who himself operating fabricated the world, a matrix containing all things. He glitters with intellectual sections, but he has filled all things with love. These things the Father understood, and the mortal nature became animated for him, because we were created from mud or something. The theology of the Chaldeans attributes 7 processions to this god, hence he is called in the oracles 7-angled and 7-rayed. There are 7 colors of the rainbow. 7 days it took God to create the world, or whatever. 7 days of the week. 7 is ever present, and quite frankly, Uranus is the 7th planet from the sun, and its orbit is exactly 7 years that of Jupiter's. 7 times that of Jupiter's. The intellect of the Father Jupiter made a crashing noise, signifying the procession of ideas to the formation of the world. Understanding with unwearied counsel, omniform ideas, but with winged speed, they leaped forth from one fountain, for both the counsel and the end were from the Father. In consequence, too, of being allotted an intellectual fire, they are divided into other intellectual forms, for the king previously placed in the multiform world an intellectual incorruptible impression, the vestige of which, hastening through the world, causes the world to appear invested with form and replace with all various ideas, of which there is one fountain. From this fountain, other immense distributed ideas rush with a crashing noise, bursting forth from the bodies of the world, and are borne along its terrible bosoms like swarms of bees. They turn themselves to on all sides and nearly in all directions. They are intellectual conceptions from the paternal foundation, plucking abundantly the flower of the fire of sleepless time, but a self-perfect fountain pours forth primogenial ideas from the primary vigor of the Father. What a mouthful. What a mouthful. Yeah. Jupiter's got a lot more power than people give it credit for. A lot more power. A lot more power. And it probably intermingles with the electromagnetism of the sun. You know, if we go crash boom between us, we're kind of like at a middle part swell between the two, I think. Jupiter literally protects our planet from like asteroids. You know, there's reasons they call it Daddy Jupiter. The unpolluted or guardian intellectual order, the union of the first father Saturn and the first of the unpolluted gods, is transcendent, and hence this stable god is called by the gods silent, and is said to consent with intellect and to be known by souls through intellect alone. I think it's talking about the one. And hence Plato appears to me again to assert the same things which were afterwards asserted by the gods, for what they have denominated furnished with every kind of armor. This he celebrates by being adorned with an all-perfect and complete armor. For being furnished with every kind of armor and being armed, he is similar to the goddess. An oracle addressed to the intellectual gods. Yea, intellectual gods, who understand the supramundane paternal profundity. Goodness. This is a gnarly study, man. This is a gnarly study. There's a reason they say spirituality is and religion is for the really smart people, and it's unfortunate that it's been put into the hands of the, less. I mean, it's in my hands right now. You know, I study all courses. But that's gonna do it for part 2, because I think I went on for a while. Stay tuned for part 3.